Today's episode, how to live mindfully, holistic health. And do me a favor here, because when it comes to Dr. Susila, when it comes to the Dharma, the full word for the Dharma, the Santantana Dharma, how do I pronounce that?
It's Sanadana Dharma.
Yes, it's Santanada. Oh, we're going to get into this again. Here, we might be cutting this on the floor here. So anyway, how to live mindfully, holistically, and
Sanadana Dharma.
just so fast. So what does that mean to begin with?
So Sanadana Dharma is really for people growing up in India for generations. It's the right way to live, or the eternal rules about how to live a good life. So all it really is just principles, which I often refer to, in Hinduism or any other great religion of the world, whether it's Christianity or Buddhism or Judaism, any great religion of the world, the basic principles of how to live a good life. It's very, very similar across board.
So we and we all know what Dharma is, right? And that's used in now the West, like all of this. So where did we mutilate and cut that term, and why? Do you know?
That's a really interesting question. So I think it goes back to the history of India. Um, when the British colonized India, there were all these people going about, living their lives as normal, and there needed to be some structure. So, the British coming in said, what religion do you practice? Because they could relate to Christianity. And so when they came to India, they said, oh, these people are practicing Sanatana Dharma, but instead of calling it Sanatana Dharma, because they started in the Indus Valley, or the way in which the religion moved, or the way of life moved, people moved into India through the Indus Valley, they call it Hinduism. So it comes from the word Indus, which has become Hinduism. So, you could say I'm a Hindu, you could say I practice Sanatana Dharma. For me, it's the same thing.
I love that. I did not know that. And again, so we took what we wanted and left. Isn't that fascinating? I could listen to you all day long. So, okay, getting into here, we're in the Ennobled for Business anthology, right? And your book coming here, right? Living holistically, which this became something really driving for you out of everything that you were doing. Can you lean into why this became so important and tell us a little bit about who and what that all means for you?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Maureen. So I think it's a reflection of my whole journey to where I am at this point of time. People I've lost prematurely, they've died because of cardiovascular disease. They've been through a lot of disability before they've died. And so my journey, I started off as a clinical doctor, as a general practitioner. And I saw a lot of people coming in. A lot of what we're managing in clinics is consequent to lifestyle diseases. So it's not enough exercise, too much alcohol, too much tobacco, a very poor diet. And that consequent to that, you get whether it's cancers or cardiovascular disease, diabetes, hypertension. Those are the things that people are getting. Now we're living longer as a community, but the last few years, or I'd say the last 10, 20 years of our lives are lived in high morbidity. So a lot of illness and disease. And for me, that's not the way to go. I think if you can prevent disease for as long as possible. So when you think about health, it's the WHO defines it as a good state of emotional, physical, and mental well-being, not just the absence of disease. So how do we incorporate all of this, your emotional, physical, spiritual, mental self, and give you the best possible sense of wellness that you can have so that you can thrive in your life and in society? So a lot of things, working as a doctor, and I worked for a long time in the pharmaceutical industry, and we did amazing work in terms of bringing cutting edge medicine, which helps people live longer. But I've come full circle. I'm like, why are we getting to the point where we're sick and we need medicines? What can we do to prolong this wellness as far as possible? And then even when you get sick, what can we do to make things as optimal as possible?
And all of it has to do with one another. Again, when your mental state, your mindset, as well as then your body and your health and your nutrition and all of it goes and it connects, right? That so it seems so obvious, and yet in medicine it's very compartmentalized. Wow, it's been a as we say, it's 5 a.m. for you, and it's been a marathon stay. Yes, marathon. So glad you're here. Within that, though, then and I love then the holistic, and it just makes sense. But now coming, I love that you say in pharmaceutical, because the whole noble for business brings that forward, being ennobled and what ennobled means, and also bring the living in a place of goodness and being in what that looks like, right? And that's what we started this out.
Yes.
You get that word greed, corporate greed and profit. and where does that align with holistic health and holistic body and mind, and when you don't need the pharmaceutical, or you don't need, they might be taking me out after this, that you don't need you don't need big medicine.
I think there is, I think there's a misperception about this, right? I've lived my whole life by the mantra of when I'm working in the pharmaceutical industry, or even as a GP, and when I prescribe medications, it's the right drug for the right person at the right time for the right disease. If you don't need it, you shouldn't be taking it, right? So the first step of any, I think the GPs or the clinicians are the gatekeepers. They make a strong assessment of how you are, what are the problems that you have, and how to move you forwards to a place of well-being. And then they decide what medications to give you based on that. Now, then comes in the corporate companies, a commercial determinants of health, like a pharmaceutical company, where, I mean, if you look at it, I think in many ways the pharmaceutical industry history has a checkered history. So maybe, and this is how, when we know better, we do better. It started off in clinical trials not being done in the best possible way. But I think today it is one of the most highly regulated industries in the world. And so there are so many parameters, so many authorities looking at them in terms of how they do their studies and how their results are documented, that when any trial is done, there's a requirement that it has to be, there's a website called theclinicaltrial.gov that it has to be put on the website. So it's open to the public. Anybody can access that information. So transparency is absolutely a need, critical. And also, I think what we forget is no one government or no one non-corporate body has been able to make medicines. And we're talking about life-giving or life-enabling medications, as well as the corporate companies have been able to do it. And it's because, I think, of a business model, fortunate or unfortunate. It's because they have that drive to create it. They have efficiency, they have timelines, they have the know-how. Right? If you look at governments, no other organization has been able to do it. So the corporate companies enable the development. A lot of profits are fed back into research and development, a big chunk of it. I think the issues come when there have been unethical marketing practices. And I have to say now it's absolutely, I mean, I worked in pharma for so long, and It's extremely regimented about what you can and can't do in terms of your marketing. And it's getting strict marketing and advertising in the US, because I think you have direct to customer or consumer advertising in the US. So they have to be absolutely strict about it.
So let's talk. I love your experience. Um, the the piece that, and you're coming back holistic, right? You're coming back from, and Hinduism is holistic as well. Everything you do, you're accountable for. So
Yes.
then just live nice and live well and live that others matter and get it right the first time. I don't know,
Yes.
maybe I just made that too simple, but that is, since live a good life with what
That
that
is
looks like.
That's absolutely it, Maureen. I think it's your relationship with yourself and the world around you. So we believe in karma. And you can relate to that. What goes around comes around, or every reaction is an equal and opposite reaction. So anything we do, we know that we're in some way or other, we're going to pay for it, or we're going to benefit from it. So if we do good, we will eventually, it might not happen at that point of time, but over for some reason. So when we need it the most, something will happen. If we do bad, likewise, it's going to come back and harm us. So with that at the back of our minds, we generally, let's try and do the best that we can do. And it's so also, it's the relationship. When you believe there's a spark of divinity within you, or call that inner wisdom, whatever you want to call it, when you believe it's within you, it's within everything. It's within nature, it's within people around you, it's within animals. And so, I mean, you see this with, say you have a dog, the better you treat the dog, the more loving it is as well, right? If you treat the dog badly, it's going to bite you. Right, that comes down to the simplicity of it. Now, Mother Nature is the same. When you look after it, you protect it, you nurture it, you water it, you fertilize it, it grows lushly. And I love gardening, so that's why I'm using the metaphor of that. But when you abandon it, everything dies and becomes brown and stark. So that's we see it all around us, and yet we don't stop and observe it and think about how this impacts us and what we're doing every day.
Even if you're going back to holistic, if
Yeah.
you're living the anger and you're living hate, you're destroying yourself. Where if you're living love, and it's different energies, your body filters it differently. So holistically, it's just a healthier place to live.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, I think it's changing the narrative, right? We grow up in quite a environment which says, you're goal oriented, you've got to be the best, you've got to be the most successful. And yet, how do you define the best and the successful? Is it versus other people, or is it versus yourself? Right. So how can you be a better person? And so when you take it as versus yourself, that you want to be that good person, that noble person, you improve, everybody around you improves, and we have a good cohesive society. Whereas when you're very individual centered, it's like me and everybody's saying me, and that whole cohesion just gets lost. And so there's no caring, nurturing, sharing within a community. And the science says that we are best as people when we're within a tribe, and when we're cohesive as a community, when our relationships with ourselves, our families, our friends are closest and strongest, that's when we thrive the best.
And we're healthiest.
Yes, absolutely.
So okay, so the Noble for Business is an anthology all about the corporate and STEM input and perspective. So and so the whole holistic approach to your chapter, and hold on, let's do that quickly. And your chapter is health and wellness for business success. That's pretty succinct, right? That when it comes to physicians are really been beat up the last 20 years, and they've also been marginalized and stripped of so much of their authority to often do what they, and tell me if I'm wrong here, because I'm not in the medical field at all, that when you come out with the courage to say that we're going to live holistically, which only comes naturally to you by how you were brought up in Hinduism, right? And then also what you've learned and seen and experienced as a doctor, how do you tell other physicians how to stand in their power when so much is pulling from their power? There's frustration for physicians now, right?
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. I just came back from a population health congress in Adelaide, where New Zealand and Australia physicians, public health practitioners from around the world come for that conference. And we had a session with the chief health officers. Now, these are the people for the last 2.5 years that were on TV every morning talking about COVID. And we've seen them in the most heartbreaking conditions, and yet they're fronted up every day. Now, most periods of crisis you can deal with for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and then you need some downtime to recuperate. And so these people have been there for over 700 days when you think about it. And we gave them a standing ovation. They were reflecting, they were so calm, they were so giving, and we just gave them a standing ovation for the work that they've done. But I think, as you said, it's not just the last 2 years, it's decades. It was simple. It was a lot simpler earlier because the armamentarium that we had in terms of treating patients, the knowledge that we had was quite simple when we started off. But in the decades since, there's been more and more this cutting edge science. Every day we have to read clinical papers or we have to upskill ourselves. When you get your medical degree, I remember our dean saying, he gave us our degree and he said, "Today your learning begins." We've just finished 5.5 years of med school, and he says, "Today your learning begins." So it never stops for physicians. We do 9 to 5 or whatever, 10 hours, 12 hours a day. You go home and then you're reading because you gotta keep up to date with what's going on. So it's, in COVID, I've got friends who are psychiatrists who are telling me the demand for psychiatry, for mental health support is so high that they are being stretched and they don't know how to say no. So this is what you're saying, right? Physicians are so stretched. How do we how do they how do they become holistic, or how do they look after themselves? And I think that's a real challenge, because a lot of people who went into medicine went into it or go into it because of a calling. They want to help people. They want people to feel better. And so it's very hard to put a stop to that or to say, no, this is as much as I can do. But at the heart of it, I think it's when you are whole and when you are well, you can give the best of yourself to people around you. So for me, it's about setting boundaries. And it is sometimes, you have to be a little bit tough to be kind. So in order to look after your own well-being so that you can be the best for your patients, you need to set boundaries, which means, if you finish your clinic, you go home, you make sure you think about all those aspects which are going to nurture you. And I talk about it in the book, as a rechargeable battery, you will get depleted. So what is it? What is it in yourself that nourishes, invigorates, fills you with a sense of joy, serenity, calm, peace, harmony, all those really good, beautiful characteristics that make you in harmony with yourself and give you that sense of fullness. And it is different for everybody. So at the heart of it, it's making, as much as we give to everybody else, it is making that time to give to yourself. And I don't know why we find it so hard. It is hard for physicians, but I think it's important.
Well, it's beyond important, and that is what your chapter is about, and the voice to that is so important. But when the whole piece is that when you're holding the life preserver, when there's not one for you, right? That you give your life preserver away, that So other because now you're in a place where you've made this leap and you're standing in and how important is self-care and
Yeah.
even the so what where do you have you're at the continual burnout, right? Because you guys didn't get to go home, and it's still not going home, and that so where are you, I know that you're saying go carve out a little bit of you so there's something left when you get to give for others,
Yeah.
and then that but that becomes a lifestyle thing, right?
Yeah.
Where do you shift that into your lifestyle to live a holistic full being, so
Yeah.
this way there's something left when you're able to go back and be the noble profession of the medical profession that you guys are.
Yeah. I think really it's about being mindful. We do things by rote, we're automatic in so many of our behaviors. And I think that's where it's taking a step back and being intentional and mindful about how I want to live my life. So even if you commit, and I've done this myself where I've said, I'm okay with working 18-hour days for a short period because I know this is what I want to accomplish, because that journey of me doing things for other people for 18 hours gives me my spirit, a tremendous sense of accomplishment and giving, right? So that nourishes me. But it's also then, okay, I will agree to that. But in the remaining, what is that, 6 hours of the day, how am I going to look after myself? So within whatever you decide, I mean, whatever decisions you make, if you're intentional about it and you say, this is my commitment, but in the balance of my time, I'm going to think about, what is it that makes me joyful? So what have a decent meal. Even if it's that one meal of the day, have a really nourishing, put on some music, grab a glass of wine or mineral water, whatever it is, and make yourself something. Just nourish yourself. Make yourself a really beautiful meal. Sit down by yourself or with your family and enjoy it. So carve out that moments. If you eat alone, that's fine. But if you have it with your family, that's even better, because you get to choose, you get to converse with people, you get to build relationships. So think about all those components. What can you do about your spirituality? What can you do about your physical well-being? How can if we're so busy, how can we incorporate exercise into our lives? So do we need to get down or park at a car park that's, 1 block away and walk to the hospital or walk to our clinic? How can we incorporate exercise into our lives so that it isn't, oh my goodness, I've got to go to the gym for another hour. So it becomes a task. What you want to do is incorporate, and this is where I come back to the way I was brought up, the right way of living. We don't think of things as tasks. It's incorporated into the way we live, that it just becomes, how can you build a life which nourishes you and which is helpful to you, which is time saving, which is it's not a goal, it's not an objective, because the minute you put goal, task, objective, it feels like work. I mean, I think about it. Let me give you a different example, right? I think about, I love the piano and I play the piano, right? So my narrative to the piano is warm, it's magical. So I spend time learning everything I can about it. I spend, hours a day on my piano. I lose myself. I can play the piano and feel my hair standing because it's so beautiful. So when my narrative to the piano is warm and gentle and magical, I want to spend time on it. So you change your narrative to yourself. When you change your narrative, we are so critical about our bodies and who we are that we're constantly thinking, I need to be better, I need to be slimmer, I need to be, look better. And yet, that narrative is always negative. When you can change that narrative to something positive, oh my goodness, you carry me, you carry my soul and spirit 24 hours a day. You help me achieve everything that I want to achieve in my life. How can I look after you so that I can continue to achieve all the things I want to achieve? So when you change that narrative, you think, okay, what can I do to look after myself? You do your research, you think about what makes you happy, what makes your body feel good. you go and seek those things, cuddles or whatever they are, right? I love to go for bushwalks. So I go to bushwalks and I love the nature and the sunrises and the sunsets and just, birds chirping. That fills me. So I go and seek those things. So it doesn't feel like it's a chore. It doesn't feel like it's one extra thing I need to do on top of all my work.
So what you're saying is, and by the way, we don't have bushwalks in the US. So I love that my Aussie friend. That similar to how you love the piano, your acknowledgement and love for your body, all that it does is the place to start when you're living a holistic life.
Yeah, for your body, your mind, your spirit, your emotions. So, in spiritual sense as well, what are you feeding your mind? We the easiest thing, and I think it's almost automatic. I don't know why, human behavior, but when you're tired, what do? You come home, you sit in front, make yourself a cup of tea or coffee. You come home, you sit in front of your television and you flip, 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 flip. And most of it's not great news. you know so why don't you do something else? Why don't you put on a comedy which makes you laugh hysterically, or why don't you put on some music that actually makes you feel great? So what are you feeding? All of this is intentional. How do we be more intentional rather than automatic? And humans are, some of our behavior is automatic, some of our behavior is mindful. So how do you shift it to have more mindful behaviors? So when, instead of reaching for alcohol, you reach for a beautiful glass of green tea or something else, or you reach for maybe go and do some Pilates or some yoga that makes you feel good. So it's substituting bad behaviors for good habits. And then once you do it over a period of time, you don't even think about what you're doing. It's like sometimes I do want to watch TV and I'm sitting in front of the TV, but I'm stretching. I'm doing all my yoga poses as and then I feel I've watched television for a while, and it might have been something mindless, but my whole body feels completely relaxed and stretched and calm and flexible. So it's, we're all time short, time poor. And I think it really is about how can you make best use of what you have, with keeping yourself and other people in mind.
And living intentionally.
Living intentionally, absolutely.
Okay. I absolutely love this. And again, Dr. Susila. Did I say it right?
Spot on.
Did I? Oh, come on. Yes. Anyway,
We got there.
I can listen to you all day. I'm grateful to be in your presence, and I want you to receive that because you are really a beacon.
No, thank you, Maureen. Thank you so much. I think it's a passion. It's just the way, I know that if everybody around me as well, that life will be better as well. So that's where my, that gives meaning and purpose to my life. So thank you. I thank you very much for the opportunity to be here as well and to share this.
Again, everyone, the book will be out in Noble for Business, part of the series, and more to come. All right, everyone, have a good one.
Take care.